The question of self-knowledge is as old as philosophy itself. From the ancient dictum, know thyself, inscribed at the temple of Apollo at Delphi, to modern psychological and neuroscientific inquiries, humanity has long sought to understand the nature of the self and whether we can ever truly know who we are. But can we really achieve a complete and true understanding of ourselves, or is self-knowledge forever limited by our cognitive, emotional, and social conditions? The ancient quest for self-knowledge. The imperative to know thyself was central to many ancient philosophies, particularly in Greek thought. Socrates famously argued that self-knowledge was the foundation of wisdom. To him, an unexamined life was not worth living. Only through continuous self-reflection and questioning could a person hope to uncover the truth of their own nature. In Plato's dialogues, this process is connected to the idea of an immutable soul, something enduring beneath the changing experiences and desires of the body. For Plato, self-knowledge meant understanding the soul's nature, its virtues, and its place in the larger cosmic order. But even in Plato's idealism, there is a tension. How can the soul, hidden beneath layers of bodily experience and illusion, be truly known by the self itself? Modern philosophy and the fragmented self. With the rise of modern philosophy, especially with thinkers like René Descartes, the focus shifted to the conscious mind as the foundation of self-knowledge. Descartes' famous cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, asserted that the very act of thinking and doubting proves the existence of a self. However, Descartes' view also opened a Pandora's box. How do we know that the thoughts and beliefs we have are accurate representations of the self? Later philosophers complicated the picture further. David Hume argued that the self is nothing but a bundle of perceptions, constantly changing and lacking any fixed core. If there is no stable self to know, then self-knowledge is an illusion. Meanwhile, existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre emphasize that the self is always in the process of becoming, shaped by freedom and choice, and thus can never be fully fixed or completed. Psychological perspectives, the conscious and unconscious. In the 19th and 20th centuries, psychology entered the quest for self-knowledge. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis suggested that much of the self is unconscious. According to Freud, we are often unaware of our true desires, fears, and motives because they are repressed beneath layers of consciousness. This introduces a fundamental limit to self-knowledge. If parts of the self operate outside of conscious awareness, can we ever truly know ourselves fully? Contemporary psychology recognizes that humans have multiple layers of awareness and that cognitive biases, defense mechanisms, and emotional blind spots distort our self-perception. For example, the Dunning-Kruger effect shows how people often overestimate their knowledge or abilities because of cognitive limitations. Meanwhile, social psychology highlights how much of our identity is shaped by social roles and external validation, making the authentic self elusive. Neuroscience and the brain, the self as a brain construct. More recently, neuroscience has explored the self as a product of brain activity. Brain imaging studies suggest that the sense of self emerges from complex neural networks. Some neuroscientists argue that the self is a kind of narrative or story constructed by the brain to integrate experiences over time. If the self is merely a construct of the brain, does that mean self-knowledge is limited to what our brain can process and report? This raises challenging questions about whether we can trust our subjective experience or whether it is inherently incomplete or even misleading. For example, disorders such as dissociative identity disorder reveal how fragmented and unstable the self can be, undermining the notion of a single coherent identity. The role of language and social interaction. Philosophers and psychologists alike recognize that language and social interaction play crucial roles in shaping self-knowledge. We come to understand ourselves through communication with others and through the labels and narratives that society provides. This means that self-knowledge is not purely internal, but relational. The philosopher Charles Taylor argues that identity is embedded in the dialogical space, the web of social relationships that make self-understanding possible. Without others' recognition, we may struggle to know who we are. Yet this also means that our self-knowledge is influenced by social expectations, cultural norms, and the judgments of others. Thus, it can be partial, biased, or even distorted. Can we know ourselves truly? Given these complexities, the question arises, can we ever truly know ourselves? There are several perspectives to consider. 1. Complete self-knowledge is impossible. Given the unconscious dimensions of the mind, cognitive biases, social influences, and the fluid nature of identity, it seems unlikely that any person can fully know themselves. Parts of the self remain hidden or ambiguous, and our perceptions of ourselves are always filtered through subjective lenses. 2. Partial and evolving self-knowledge is achievable. While perfect self-knowledge may be unattainable, we can strive for greater awareness and insight. Through practices like introspection, psychotherapy, meditation, and honest feedback from others, we can uncover deeper layers of ourselves and learn to understand our motivations, emotions, and values better. Self-knowledge is thus a continuous process rather than a fixed state. 3. Self-knowledge is constructed and contextual. Our understanding of ourselves changes depending on context, culture, and social environment. There is no essential self to discover, but rather multiple selves that emerge in different roles and relationships. Knowing ourselves, then, means recognizing this multiplicity and the fluidity of identity. 4. Mystical and spiritual traditions offer alternative views. Some spiritual traditions suggest that the true self transcends ordinary ego consciousness. Practices such as mindfulness, meditation, and contemplation aim to dissolve the ego and reveal a deeper, universal self beyond personality and thought. From this perspective, knowing oneself fully requires transcending the ordinary self rather than analyzing it. Why does self-knowledge matter? Despite the difficulties, the pursuit of self-knowledge remains vital for several reasons. Knowing ourselves better helps us make wiser decisions, build more authentic relationships, and live in greater harmony with our values. It promotes emotional intelligence and resilience, enabling us to respond to life's challenges with greater awareness and adaptability. Moreover, self-knowledge fosters ethical responsibility. Socrates believed that knowing oneself was essential to living a virtuous life because it revealed our true nature and limits. Without self-awareness, we risk acting out of ignorance, illusion, or unconscious drives. Conclusion. The question, can we ever truly know ourselves, does not admit a simple yes or no answer. Self-knowledge is a complex, multi-layered, and dynamic endeavor. We are limited by unconscious processes, cognitive biases, social influences, and the very nature of identity as fluid and constructed. Yet this does not render the pursuit futile. Rather, it invites humility and persistence. True self-knowledge may not be a final destination, but a lifelong journey, a process of continuous questioning, reflection, and transformation. It involves embracing uncertainty, acknowledging our shadows, and remaining open to new insights. In this sense, knowing oneself is less about a fixed truth and more about the ongoing act of becoming, a dance between who we are and who we strive to be.